delighted to be joined by Vince Clarke, who's about to release his solo debut album called Songs of Silence, out in November. Vince, good to speak to you. How are you feeling about the prospect of your solo debut after all this time?
I don't really know. I mean, it's very unexpected. I didn't really think that the tracks that I've been working on would get released, particularly when I recorded them. It wasn't my intention to make an album or anything. It was just me doing something, especially during lockdown. So when the record company said that they were interested in releasing it, I was kind of shocked, really.
I listened to the album for the first time this afternoon. I've got to say it's a really powerful piece of work, and I kind of can see the next step from the last Erasure album that you did as well, which was Dayglow, which I really liked, and I can kind of see the development of that. Is that how you saw it, as like the next step from that album? Because that was quite experimental in terms of, you know, what you'd released before that with Erasure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I mean, I've certainly gotten more interested in ambient music over the last couple or few years, you know, and I kind of started getting interested in how people can make something, can make a track interesting without necessarily having a traditional kind of song arrangement.
Yeah.
You know, and grab people's attention with just sound and with sound design. Yeah, I mean, having said that, I mean, when I made the record, or when I started making the tracks, it wasn't, as I say, for anyone else particularly. It was just for me, and it seemed to keep me interested. So hopefully, it will keep other people interested also.
I guess that makes it more personal as well.
Yeah, I mean. You know, I'm in a very strange situation at the moment at home. So I think, you know, the tracks that are reflective of the mood that I've been in recently.
Yeah. And you mentioned that it was an album that you recorded at your home studio in New York, and it was during lockdown. So do you think in that respect, it's what makes it more atmospheric? Because it seems like a very, in part, somber piece, but also very atmospheric and in that way uplifting too. So it's not, I mean, for me it sounds like something that has been created out of you being more reflective, and I suppose being in lockdown maybe gave you that frame of mind.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's having not any real contact with other people over that period. You know, I'm fortunate to have my own studio in my own house, but at the same time, it can be very lonely.
Yeah.
Because no one in my household is particularly interested in what I do.
Okay.
Apart from the cat.
The cat's quite interested in what you're doing.
Well, the cat's kind of interested. It's when I start if I start doing beats, then he leaves the studio immediately. But this ambient music seems to settle him down. So. But yeah, so I'm in the studio on my own, and it's kind of surreal, really, just not having any contact with anybody else, or being able to interact or share ideas with other people, and just to make the music on your own.
What was it? Quite a cathartic process. I mean, I quite like the fact that listeners are kind of having to concentrate more on the instrumentation as opposed to just going straight for the vocals, because that's what we're used to, isn't it? Of course, with the pop album, you hear the vocals straight away, and obviously the instrumentation complements the vocals, but it's quite nice not having the vocals there. Was that quite cathartic to just be able to have that as the spotlight?
I think it was more a case of making the track interesting enough such that people didn't necessarily miss a vocal.
Yeah.
I mean, there are little vocal snitches and little blips and samples in there. But yeah, as you say, it's essentially an instrumental album. I've always wondered how people can do that and kind of get away with it, really.
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to writing songs and writing with Andy, you know, and you know, verses and choruses and bridges, and you know, that traditional route. So the challenge was for the tracks to still be interesting enough such that people wouldn't just stopped the track when they realised that there wasn't going to be a chorus.
I found it really meditative. I'm trying to think if that's the right word or not. Meditative, like a meditation. I'm sure that is a word, but it just doesn't sound right, and I can't say it for some reason. But it felt for me like it was something that drew me in because of the mood and the atmosphere and the melodies as well. And also it's quite hypnotic in a way, because I heard that you set rules for this album where you had to have one single key for each track. Is that right?
Yeah, so the way that I did it was, or the way that I turned out was that, every time that Andy and I record, we always have a little set of rules just to try and keep each album different from the previous. So in this case, I decided that each track would be in one key, and each track would be in different keys, but there would be no chord changes within the track.
Yeah.
So the emphasis is more on kind of new sounds coming in and developing and changing and morphing over a 4-minute period, without a dramatic kind of, here comes the kind of chorus.
Yeah.
Section.
There's certainly drama to it, though. There's a lot of drama in the album. And I was going to ask you if you were a fan of John Carpenter, because there's parts of this that, particularly the track Red Planet, that reminded me of a lot of his work, a lot of his early work. And it's very soundtracky. I was wondering if that's a direction that you want to go in, to do movie and TV soundtracks. And, of course, game soundtracks, I suppose, now as well.
If the opportunity should arise, then I would. I've done a couple of very minor soundtracky projects before. A lot of the inspiration for this record came from watching not old actually, but new science fiction films. I'm a big fan of science fiction anyway. And I remember, I think the thing that kicked the whole thing off was when I saw the new Blade Runner movie.
Oh yeah.
That was the starting point, I guess, for Lamentations of Jeremiah. It started off as a kind of a sci-fi soundtrack, I guess, and then I asked my friend Reed Hayes to play cello on it, and then it became something else. Then it became more human, I guess. A lot of ideas that I incorporated into the record came from spending too much time watching Netflix movies.
Right. We've all been there, especially over the last few years.
Yeah.
So what was it like doing the visual stuff? Because I know from previous experience, Erasure rarely had images of yourself and Andy, and there's often been illustrations or artwork as opposed to photographs of you, like portraits. And you've done that for this album. It's a really striking photograph on the cover, black and white, and also with the video for the track that you just mentioned, The Lamentations of Jeremiah. Was that quite an easy thing for you to do? Because I'm guessing maybe that you haven't been comfortable with that in the past, but you seem to have braced it this time.
Well, I think the idea behind that was really to show people how actually old I am. When you make a pop video, it's kind of quite glossed over, really. And then I saw one video from another band, and I was really struck by the fact that the images of the band themselves were very, they weren't wearing makeup. They weren't glossed over. They were kind of gritty images of real, and they were real, And so I thought that would be interesting to incorporate with this record, just because Andy and I have never done anything like that before, or I've never done anything like that before, and to give it a kind of a documentary feel. You know?
It's a beautiful video, and the photograph as well. They're both beautifully shot, and the lighting and everything. But I think it's good, because I think it does show experience as well. It's like you say, it's not glossed over. It's not like you're on Instagram with a filter. But I think there's definitely an art to that as well, as creating that mood. And I think that's what.
Yeah, and the photographer that we worked with, or that I worked with. That's the kind of stuff that he does. He shoots it almost entirely in black and white, and this guy he's a little he's an older gentleman, and he was he photographed for Time magazine and all those kind of more serious publications in the US.
Yeah.
And that's why we decided, that's why we asked him if he would be interested in doing it. And funnily enough, I mean, he was up for the idea, except for the fact that apparently, when he's been commissioned by English record companies before, that they never pay him properly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So we had to guarantee the money to make sure that he would.
So much of that goes on as well.
Yeah.
So you work with modular synthesizer. Is it Eurorack on this album? And I would imagine that if you're kind of, I don't know whether you're somebody who just keeps on working, and you never know when to stop. Did you know when to stop tweaking? And because it's quite a playful piece of equipment, I would imagine, to keep those sounds going and keep experimenting with sounds.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's always been a problem knowing when to stop, I think.
Oh, right from day one.
Always. I mean, because you can always make things better, or you think that you can make things better. But this record was made over a long period of time, so I had time to listen back. I mean, mostly, most of the editing that I did at the end was taking things out rather than putting things in.
Okay, interesting.
So, because you realise, you go, oh yeah, that sound or that effect is interesting enough such that it sustains the track. That's all you need. And when you start putting too many flourishes in or too many extra bits, then it takes away from that feeling from the emotion of the track. In this particular instance,
I would imagine it's quite addictive as well. Never knowing when to stop as well, because you just want to keep playing with the sounds.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and a lot of the time, I mean, I was using Eurorack for this album, but also I did a lot of editing in Logic in my DAW, DAW. So a lot of the effects were done on the computer. So I generate the basic sound with Eurorack, and then start manipulating and cutting stuff up on the computer, which I love doing. I mean, it's real anal.
Yeah.
I love it,
How do you think the Erasure fans are going to treat this record, and do you think they're going to appreciate it like they have with the work that you've done with Andy, and also, of course, with Depeche Mode and Yazoo as well? Do you think those people that loved your work back then and up until recently, they're going to appreciate it, but maybe in a different way?
I have absolutely no idea.
It never crossed your mind? You were never curious?
No. It's as I say. I mean, I've kind of made the record. I made these tracks for myself, really. So
yeah.
I'll be happy if there's a couple of people out there that kind of appreciate it or enjoy them also.
Yeah, well, I did. I mean, hands up, I could say, because I've loved your work from day one anyway, and I think this is, in some ways, it's a very different, project, but you can definitely hear glimpses of what you've done before, and I suppose that's obviously the personal thing as well. Has Andy heard the album?
He's heard the lead track, and he was very. He says some very nice things about it. Yeah. So, yeah, because he's also working on his own solo stuff at the moment.
Okay, yeah, because of course he's obviously done some solo projects before, and this is the first one for you, proper solo album debut.
So I'm looking forward to hearing what he's up to.
Yeah.
So far he hasn't played me anything.
He's kept everything under wraps. You would think that you would be the first person he'd be playing stuff to.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time, Vince. It's a fantastic album. I wish you all the best with it. It comes out, like I say, on the 17th of November. Is this something you're going to be taking on tour? Is it going to be a live album in some ways?
Well, what we're hoping to do is in November, we're hoping to do like a one-off performance of the album in London.
Oh, wow.
One in London, one in New York. But it won't be so much a concert. It will be more like it will be very a visual show. So it will be, rather than music with visuals. It will be visuals with music. That's the way that we're working at it now. So that's been very exciting over the last few weeks, because I've been putting together all these visual effects and working with different video synthesizers. So it'll be an AV show, I guess.
Yeah.
So that hopefully that's going to happen a few days after the release of the record.
Oh, fantastic. That's definitely something to look forward to. Good to speak to you, and hopefully catch up with you soon.
All right, buddy. Thanks.